Well, it's time for Media Watch now. James Creedon's with us in the studio. Good to see you, James. And you're taking us back to Vienna, where we got the result just a couple of hours ago, didn't we? A very tight race. In fact, when it came down to it, less than 1% of the vote made the difference. Postal votes, i.e. Austrians living abroad, decided to elect the pro-EU Green guy instead of the far-right extremist.
That's right. Quite the divergent choice as well, and a razor-thin divide. So relief is appearing in a lot of headlines. EU relief at far-right defeat in Austria. That's the headline on the EU Observer's website. In the Süddeutsche Zeitung, just over the border in Germany, they're saying, well, Austrians didn't really want a Green party representative as a head of state. Many citizens voted for him simply to block the far-right party, which is what we've seen in France as well, kind of people in regional elections voting for anybody but the far-right kind of candidate. What else do we have? The Austrian paper Kronen Zeitung here showing just how close it was. I mean, you really can't, if you look at the graphics and the charts, it is neck and neck, and that's how it's being depicted in this cartoon by the Belgian cartoonist Sondron, where basically saying perfect equality between the two, and you can see this sort of fluffy, bunny-style green candidate, and then, I suppose the far-right candidate being depicted as fascist, neo-fascist indeed. Every single vote counts, says Julie Lenars, not an empty mantra as proven by the election today in Austria. In other words, sometimes it really does come down to the wire and your vote counts. Congrats, neighbours for making the right choice, says one German sports blogger, pointing out that Austria is too beautiful to be ruled by a crazy person. Not beautiful sure pictures. It works out that way sometimes, but anyway.
Yeah, well, quite. A lot of people relieved today, you could see online, yes. But the Freedom Party and also far-right movements across Europe are still seeing this as a victory because, after all, they won half the vote.
Yes, that's right. And if you have a look at some of the tweets online, take a look at this one here. A French Front National supporter reacts to reports of the Green candidate winning. Green is the colour of Islam, #Austria. So there were reactions like that coming from far-right supporters elsewhere in Europe, which were just really, I suppose, just cynical to the extreme. Where is Austria? Straight ahead, misters, and you can see this sort of absolute wave of migrants
because Austria, of course, has been on the front line, really, of migrants coming across Eastern Europe.
As have other neighbouring countries, for example, in Hungary, and it has really polarised opinion. One example of a very prominent individual who has supported far-right ideas is, the skydiver. You remember him from a couple of years ago, the Felix, if I could remember, Baumgartner is his name, that incredible skydive. Well, he's been really active on social media over the last few weeks and months, saying we have to vote far-right. The Hungarian president deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. Of course, that's the president just over the border who was very tough on the immigration story. So in any case, he's one of the more prominent, I suppose, supporters in Austria of the far-right vote. So it is all very polarising.
Because a few years ago, I mean, the far-right was really shunned in political debate, and they are gaining credibility, aren't they? They're not seen as the nutty fringe anymore. They are seen as credible mainstream parties, not only in Austria, also, of course, in Greece, quite worryingly, the Golden Dawn party, which is a lot more open in its rhetoric. They don't seem to bother putting a respectable face on it. And in Holland, and in Hungary, and here in France.
That's right. So the far-right party in France, Jean-Marie Le Pen, the former leader, he was rarely invited on TV sets previously. Now his daughter, Marine Le Pen, is seen as much more, I guess, respectable and mainstream. Can you say mainstream far-right? But a good example of this is a dispute that happened over the weekend. You had the Nadine Morano. Now, she is a centre-right politician for the Les Républicains party, and she was talking about the Gare du Nord train station. And she said, when you go to Gare du Nord now, you're not in France anymore, you're in Africa, which is obviously a comment that is going to create controversy because Gare du Nord is a hub where you have people coming in from various different suburbs. Of course, there's a big immigrant population in France, but it's a divisive comment. And then you have the vice president of the National Front Party criticising Nadine Morano for those comments, saying this is extreme rhetoric, this is not how you should speak. Can we not elevate the tone of the public debate a little bit more? Yes, there is a problem of immigration. Yes, there is a problem of sectarianism in certain neighbourhoods, but this is not the kind of language we should be using. So here you have one of the leaders of the far right in France criticising the centre right for her tone and the choice of language, which shows that basically the centrist parties are having a big problem trying to stem the flow of votes to the far right. So they're actually adopting a lot of the language of the far right to try to stem it. And
it didn't work for Nicolas Sarkozy, did it?
It didn't work for Nicolas Sarkozy, but I suppose...
But the situation was different.
That's right, and I suppose what's happened in Austria now is just illustrating the headache for centrist parties in terms of these sort of polarising debates over immigration and integration, which are benefiting in large part the far right parties.
All right, James, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks.
Thanks, Laura.
James Creedon there.